now. And welcome, audience. Welcome to the session again. So, just to talk about, in terms of if I take three regions' name, what comes across to your mind? Let's say Australia, Southeast Asia, and Europe. The one thing which comes to my mind is that these are popular tourist destinations from India, where during the holiday seasons people do go and visit. But as the recent times, the tourism is on a halt. But at the same time, these are also popular or uncharted markets and territories for e-commerce sellers as well. So in this session, senior leaders from Pioneer will share details on opportunities in unexplored markets like Australia, Southeast Asia, and Europe. So I would like to welcome Nagesh, Miguel, James, Nathan, and they will take forward from here and they will introduce themselves. Over to you guys. All the best.
All right. Thanks, Amit. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nagesh Devta. I look after the enterprise business within Payoneer in Asia Pacific. And I'll have the pleasure of moderating this panel for the next 30 minutes with my colleagues. And what we'll try to do is over the next 30 minutes is give you a bit of a perspective and flavor of these diverse geographies, but exceptionally growing geographies, and also perspective around how Payoneer looks at these markets and the opportunity for the India seller community to tap and unlock the opportunities in these markets. I think my colleagues here, James, Miguel, and Nathan, have a tremendous amount of experience across all these markets, having worked in these markets, having worked with both sellers like yourself, but also enterprises across these markets, and really are very much in sync with what's happening in these markets in terms of the trends, some of the changes that we're seeing in terms of consumer behavior, consumer engagement, the way enterprises are trying to grow their businesses across these markets. And I think with Payoneer, I think a couple of different things we hope to share with you is how Payoneer can be a partner to help navigate these new markets and these new regions, and then also how the depth of insight and the depth of experience, I think will hope to give you a perspective around markets that maybe you haven't considered it before and why they could be of great potential. So just maybe to recap again, over the next 30 minutes, we'll cover a bit on each of the geographies. We'll go into some Q&A with the panelists, and towards the end, we'll open it up to questions and answers that may be raised from the audience. With that, I'll start off with Miguel, maybe just to share a brief introduction. And Miguel is the head of Southeast Asia. As you all may know, Southeast Asia is a very exciting and fast-growing market. And Miguel.
Hey, thanks, Nagesh. Hi, everyone. So my name is Miguel. I'm actually based in Hong Kong, and as Nagesh mentioned, I'm Vice President and Regional Head for Southeast Asia. I'm here in the office in the Manila room, which is one of my favorite rooms because I am, in fact, from the Philippines. I've been with Payoneer since 2016, and I've experienced firsthand the growth that our business has had in the region. So Southeast Asia is really massive. More than 360 million people are online, and the internet economy in this region is projected by Google to grow to about 300 billion in GMV by 2025. And many are already forecasting that this will be further accelerated due to the effects of COVID. So my team, we work directly with our users, channel partners, and community stakeholders to really grow the cross-border ecosystem in the region. And we manage a very diverse base of customers, from freelancers and virtual assistants in the Philippines to Amazon sellers in Thailand and Malaysia to print-on-demand and Shopify sellers in Vietnam. And our mission is really to connect these digital entrepreneurs to global opportunities and to support Payoneer's further expansion into the region. Super happy to be here. Thank you, Nagesh.
Thanks, Miguel. Nathan, who looks after Australia, New Zealand, and massive geography, massive market, and I think immense potential, I think, for all of us to learn from.
Thanks, Nagesh. My name's Nathan. Hi, everyone. Great to meet you all. I've been with Payoneer for just over 2.5 years now. And prior to my time at Payoneer, where, again, like Miguel, I've seen immense growth globally, especially within e-commerce, I was at eBay for 4 years, so helping businesses in Australia expand on the marketplace, both here in Australia and also globally. So it gave some really good context around specifically e-commerce and the broader market, both here in Australia and also in New Zealand. The Australian market obviously is much smaller from a population standpoint, being only 25 million, which is, some cities, for example, in India. However, from a GMV perspective, I guess e-commerce perspective, it is, punching above its weight quite considerably, as many of you would know, having, friends, family, and also business interests here in the market. This year, with COVID in 2020, it's predicted to sort of hit around 18% e-commerce of total retail sales, up from about 8.5%, 9% last year. So it's, staggering growth, which is we are seeing that globally. And that'll take it to roughly close to about 50 billion in e-commerce sales this year in Australia. So it's quite amazing and quite astounding for that rapid onset, especially in the last sort of 6 months or so, which we've really seen everywhere.
Thanks, Nathan. And we'll shift across the world over to Europe. And James, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Nagesh, and hi, everyone. So, yeah, I'm James Allen. I manage the European region here at Payoneer. Europe's a high growth and pretty diverse region. We've got 24 languages and 44 countries and cultures. And at Payoneer, we cover the area from Russia in the east to Sweden in the north, and then we've got Portugal in the west, and Israel pulls into the region in the south. And as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm based in the UK. And luckily for me, English language dominates, and I guess that's pretty handy for Indian sellers also. Many sellers choose to operate in several Amazon marketplaces in Europe at once, and that's due to the close cultural and geographical ties, particularly within the Western European countries. And I suppose a good example of that is that 2/3 of Amazon sellers in Spain also sell their products in the UK. And then more than 10% of sellers kind of peddle their wares across all 5 Amazon European marketplaces. And we've got Amazon European Fulfillment Network, which allows sellers to store their inventory in one central warehouse for distribution across all European marketplaces. But it's a case of more marketplaces in the merrier. So whilst 4 of the top 10 Amazon markets are within this region, so UK, Ukraine, Israel, and Russia, there are plenty more European-facing marketplaces, including Wish, Cdiscount, Top Hatter, Newegg. And by tapping into our ecosystem of service providers and partners, it becomes easier to sort the likes of payment and currency and freight and logistics and VAT and tax challenges. Maybe a final point is that there are no surprises. There's a lot of Indians in Europe that might want to receive Indian goods. So in the UK, I think nearly 2.5% of the population is with Indians, and in Netherlands it's almost 1%, and then in Ireland it's about 2%. So lots of reasons for you to bring your business to Europe.
Great, thank you, James. And I think maybe just a point I'd just like to call out, I think, again, this is sort of the strength of how we see Payoneer. I guess geographically, we ourselves here, I'm in Singapore, Miguel's in Hong Kong, Nathan is in Australia, and James is in the UK. So I think, it's one of the strengths of what we can do and hopefully help, for you as Indian sellers to unlock as many markets as possible, going forward. And what we'll do over the next 10 minutes or so is we'll go through a little bit of a Q&A with panelists here on some of their thoughts and some of their questions. And I'll start off. I think James, I'll start off with you if that's okay. One of the things I think if you could share your thoughts, obviously COVID is, everyone has been impacted by COVID. But what types of changes have you seen as a result, and how have marketplaces and sellers been adapting to these changes?
Yeah, sure. So in Europe, it's been very much a case of remote working and lockdown fast-track change. And that there's this kind of general consensus that we leapfrog 4 years of progress and growth in about 4 months. Really for this community, e-commerce is shot through the roof. I mean, it's been very, very successful. This hyper growth softened a little bit over the summer months as our lockdown was eased a little bit, although it's starting back up again now. So a lot of sellers are anticipating very strong Q4s. And there's been a general acceleration of bricks and mortar companies moving online, really as a necessity. So probably an interesting example is in Europe, Amazon are putting together an initiative to help non-online businesses get online. It's more prevalent in markets like Spain, where small and medium-sized businesses have been fairly slow at getting online. I think only about 19% of Spanish SMEs sell online today. And I think one of the reasons that Amazon feel that this has happened is that there's been a slight lack of knowledge and training, which they're addressing now. So I suppose in summary, we're seeing the focus of marketplaces is very much around investing into knowledge and training for potential sellers now.
And James, maybe if I can ask you one further question to that, do you see, marketplaces in your region really trying to diversify or attract more sellers into their platforms?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's I think perhaps they were almost overwhelmed by the opportunity faced with them going back 4 or 5 months. So we've also seen from Payoneer's perspective, we've seen a pretty interesting increase in our customers listing on their own websites. So not just marketplaces, they're also e-commerce is growing in its kind of own ecosystem as well.
Great. Okay. Miguel, if I can go to you now, I think we've seen consumer engagements changed. It's evolved. Buying behaviors changed. I think all of us here and the attendees here, we're all part of that group. Our own buying behaviors changed. We're all buying more. We're engaging with marketplaces in a different way. We're engaging with retailers in a different way. How are you kind of seeing that in Southeast Asia? Are there things or there trends? What are your observations?
So certainly a really good question, Nagesh. And similar to many parts of the world, most people here are still either working from home or in a lockdown situation. Many countries here haven't quite surpassed yet the initial kind of lockdown period, and many countries have been on extended lockdowns, right? And I was reading this recent study by Bain and Facebook on digital consumer behavior in C, and they're throwing out the usual statistics, right? 47% of consumers decreased offline purchases, 30% increased online purchases. But what really stuck out for me in this study is that 84% of consumers surveyed tried a new app and said that they would likely continue to use that new app. So I think this presents a really massive opportunity for marketplaces and brands to tap into a new captive audience in interesting ways, right? And what I've started to notice in this region is the emergence of, I don't know if you've heard the term shoppertainment. This is already like a multi-billion-dollar success in China. But in the C region, we're starting to see it. So influential sellers are hosting these live streaming sessions where they do product and brand demos. There's sometimes a gamification element to it where you can score really good deals, rewards, maybe even discount vouchers if you're watching. So it's really, really interesting and new. A great example is Laz Live, which is the in-app live streaming channel of Lazada, right? I think it's quite clear that their strategy of merging retail and entertainment to create a fun and innovative experience for the consumer, it's really starting to pay off. I read that since April 2020, the channel gained over 27 million new active viewers, and it's significantly increased the traction of buying on that platform, right? But interestingly enough, we also have seen COVID accelerate the adoption of digital payments, primarily in countries with low levels of penetration of traditional financial services. So take the Philippines, for example, where less than 30% of the population have a bank account, and up to 80% of most purchases on marketplaces like Lazada are typically done as a cash on delivery transaction, right? But the lockdown situation has started to change that, right? It's really accelerated the growth of things like mobile wallet payments. So an example here is GCash, one of the largest mobile wallets in the Philippines. They recently reported an 800% year-on-year increase in transaction volumes on their platform. And so the use of mobile payments and new payment methods to pay for online purchases has definitely seen a boost in this part of the world. In fact, I was recently looking at the GCash app, and from within the app, it even allows you to shop a mini Lazada site and use your balance to make the purchase. So I definitely see the acceptance of mobile wallets as a payment option for online purchases continue to grow in the region, and the user experience continue to evolve as more platforms look to innovate given this new norm.
Right, and maybe one point to add, I think just to what Miguel was sharing, I think he did mention Lazada, and I think it's probably worth calling out that two of the most significant marketplaces or platforms or shopping platforms in the region, across Asia, are sitting in Southeast Asia with both Lazada and Shopee, and I think it's just testament to the market, the evolution of the market, and how they're trying to really appeal to a real diverse range of buying habits. So it's exciting.
If I could also say, so Nagesh, you mentioned Shopee, right? And I think that these two large marketplaces, Lazada and Shopee, they understand that during this time, a lot of SMEs have been affected, right? But they are really looking to actually partner with SMEs to export goods to other countries within Southeast Asia. I read that Shopee was looking to team with 20,000 SMEs in Indonesia to export local goods to Malaysia and Singapore, right? So I think that's a nice trend as well, seeing that partnership of these big marketplaces with SMEs in the region.
All right, great. Nathan, in terms of some of the types of marketplaces we're seeing, and I guess Australia kind of represents a very unique, Australia and New Zealand represent a very unique opportunity. Can you share your thoughts on the types of platforms, marketplaces that are doing well, and is the growth primarily a result of COVID, or is it something more broader in the market, or just the way consumers are interacting and engaging with them?
Sure. So marketplaces in Australia, have been around for some time. I guess globally they have been, but it's a very mature approach to marketplaces. So if we look at e-commerce, and I'll start with e-commerce, Australia was very, very successful, led by eBay, because they're the predominant marketplace in the country. So stepping back again, if we think about what are the marketplaces in Australia, it's eBay, Amazon. There's one called Catch, who's a partner of ours, and also Kogan, who's a partner of ours, which are sort of the four larger ones. There are a few other e-commerce ones, but they're the main ones that are generating most of the volume. Surprisingly to many people, eBay is actually the number one marketplace in the country, and by a significant amount. So it will depend on your product. So you may get better result actually in Catch, but it would be or Kogan, whereas Amazon's sort of the bottom end of the pile, which is quite different to anywhere else in the world. And the reason behind that is eBay was very aggressive in terms of shifting perception of eBay as a marketplace, as a second-hand destination, sort of 5-6 years ago, and really focused on onboarding large brands and large retailers onto the marketplace. So those brands started onboarding, 6, even 7 years ago now, because of how long it's been. So they started with very large retailers onboarding here, and were extremely successful, ultimately getting around 80% of the top 100 online retailers in Australia started selling on the marketplace. So these businesses, these e-commerce businesses, or actually retail businesses, because a lot of them were bricks and mortar, had a very positive attitude towards marketplaces by this stage. So then when Amazon entered the market, it was a very easy element for them to flick a switch and then start trading on Amazon, because they were using a certain integration partner who was already integrated with the marketplace, and then they just built an integration to Amazon, flick a switch, bang, you've got listings on Amazon. They would also approach Catch as well, and they have retailers on there, and Kogan too. Recently, Catch was acquired by a fairly large Woolworths, which is part of the Wesfarmers Group in Australia, a large retail conglomerate. They do about 80 billion a year total in Australia in terms of retail volume. And they acquired Catch last year as part of their marketplace strategies, because they know how important marketplaces are to Australian consumers, and they're a part of everyday life. So it's really, really a key consideration when you're entering the Australian market, to make sure that you do have a marketplace channel, irrespective of the vertical that you're approaching. So e-commerce, as I just mentioned, is a really critical one. And again, just to reiterate, eBay is number one. When we talk about other verticals, freelancing is also very mature in the market. So, there's some big Australian freelance marketplaces. Canva, who many people have heard of. Envato as well is another one of quite sizable, and obviously freelancer.com. So they're Australian freelance marketplaces. And again, people in Australia are very used to purchasing off these marketplaces. Fiverr at the moment has re-entered the space and doing a bit of a push again into Australia, because they had a very strong market share previously, and they sort of focused in other countries around the world, and they sort of dropped the ball a little bit. Now they're refocusing some efforts back into Australia. And again, we're seeing a little bit more from Upwork as well in terms of attention. So definitely across those elements, marketplaces are really critical. And traditionally, we also see a lot of strength within travel. So there's a lot of travel marketplaces, whether it be suppliers in terms of I'm traveling overseas and I want to be able to, find a kayaking trip or a hiking trip or a guide or something along those lines. So we do have a number of those types of marketplaces that exist, and also the Airbnbs and the like, which are extremely strong. Airbnb in Australia is one of their strongest markets globally. So travel is one. Obviously, at the moment, due to COVID, it's not really something that's tracking along so well. However, we're seeing a little bit of local, Airbnb is increasing significantly from a domestic travel perspective, but not necessarily an opportunity that we'd be talking about specifically for the listeners here today. But really, if we're focusing on that e-commerce for the listeners who are here, if you are entering Australia, these e-commerce marketplaces have also then there's a lot of international sellers who want to sell into Australian market. And again, when I talk Australia and New Zealand, whilst it's a different country, they too have a very strong focus on e-commerce marketplaces. So there's two in New Zealand that are quite large, one being TradeMe, which is the incumbent and been there for some time. And there's a new one called The Market, which was started by the Warehouse Group, which is the largest sort of shopping centers, mass merchants, really they are, in the country. And so they've started one about a year and a half ago, which has seen some significant traction. And all of them are sort of focusing their efforts on how can they attract international sellers. Because for a marketplace, one of the key things that drives buyers is inventory. So the better the inventory and the more broad the inventory that they have, then that increases their buyers. But the other thing they're really doubling down on in terms of a focus is around not only the quality of goods, but also the quality of delivery. So they're making sure that their merchants are really high quality, especially the smaller ones like the Market, Catch, and Kogan. They're focusing a little bit more tightly on making sure that the merchants are being onboarded manually and they're curated inventory, because they want to make sure that their customers have a really, really positive experience from a buying perspective. So that's kind of critical. So that kind of is holistically where Australia's at. And and New Zealand, and that's it.
Thanks, Nathan. I think you touched on a couple of other things which I did want to call it. So I think you've shared some of the important lessons from a very mature market, which is great. But I want to make sure we have enough time just for take a few questions. But maybe before we do that, Miguel and James, maybe just really succinctly, I'm going to give you 30 seconds each. If you were thinking about your markets and the audience here that's listening today, and the advice you could give, what would that be? That advice? And Miguel, I know we've talked about some of the great success in Vietnam on print on demand and that entire industry that's no longer just Vietnam. I mean, I think it's a world-class industry now. Just your thoughts or a quick, what would be the advice to the audience today?
Sure. Hard to describe in 30 seconds. We'll really, really try. Print on demand, obviously, is being able to, upload a T-shirt design or a mug design and then promoting it to an audience, right? And for me, I think really the key takeaway is to understand your target audience. So you really need to look at the demographics, the interests, the purchasing behavior of your customers on social media or your followers. I think in Vietnam, this is what the Vietnamese sellers have been able to really effectively do. Understand their target community, use that knowledge to then build audiences, and then invest significantly in digital advertising. And that's also how Payoneer helps them, right? We enable them to fully utilize the funds flow from the sales that they receive on their online stores, allow them to drive it very quickly and effectively into further digital advertising, and help you continue to scale your online campaigns so that something that you know is successful with your audience, you can continue to push that and see your sales go up and up. So my advice to those that are really looking to drive successful social media campaigns or online and digital campaigns, understand your target audience, understand what they want from your brand or from your product, and make sure that those are the things that you focus on when you run your digital campaigns.
And Miguel, I think maybe if I can just add a quick addition to your comments, I think maybe just to draw the parallel to India, I guess is while print demand is a T-shirt, I think it's textiles, it's clothing, it's fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's tremendous opportunity to draw that parallel to the industries in India and how they could succeed in a very similar way.
Indeed.
Okay. And then James, obviously, Europe, diverse market, let's just call it that. Diverse market, what kind of, learnings or insights would you share with the audience today?
Yeah, I think that's probably the key theme, Nagesh, is diversification. I do believe now's the time to de-risk, diversifying absolutely everything, from suppliers' location to the markets you're selling in, to the marketplaces you're listing on, having your own e-commerce site, etc., etc. And really that's about keeping your business agile and enjoying a portfolio effect in fairly uncertain times. Those of our customers that have kind of addressed those topics seem to have done better recently.
And James, I'm thinking as a seller from Asia, Europe may seem, geographically it's Europe. Is it from your perspective, is it more daunting? Is it, or should we have that, that concern? How should we be looking at Europe as an opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a market entry perspective, West Europe is probably the easier one, just because there's you can address a lot of markets quite quickly with very similar rules and cultures. So I wouldn't say it's daunting at all. And, we've actually got a lot of guides available and the team available to kind of hold people's hand through that process. So it's something we do quite regularly from sellers all over the world. So
and James, actually, one of the questions we got from the audience was around the Indian diaspora, and obviously Western Europe, as you quoted the numbers, pretty massive community there. How do you see that, or any specific guidance you might provide the group in terms of looking at that from a market entry perspective?
I suppose it's a bit of an area of passion of mine, because prior to Payoneer, I was at Western Union, so it's an area I've been monitoring for a number of years. But one of the things we do at Payoneer, which is perhaps different to some companies, is we have a very strong customer success management team. And this is very much about working with our customers in terms of helping them find new opportunities. So this would be the kind of situation where we would try and share our knowledge and connect customers with our own network and previous learnings.
Right. I think we have time maybe for another question. So one of the questions was really around home furnishings. It's obviously it's a big category and a big growth area in India, especially in the domestic market. And I think there's great potential for this to look at new markets, particularly in Australia, New Zealand, and Europe. Nathan or James, maybe Nathan, start with you. How do you think Payoneer could help? So if you're talking to this Indian brand, how do you think you could help them look at Australia as an entry?
Yeah, sure. So, really we work together collaboratively with our teams globally. So the best would be to, work with your local team in India, who then connect to our team here in Australia. And then based on the strategy that you're looking to, that they would suggest, we're able to provide support from a variety of our partners, whether that be shipping, logistics, that, as you mentioned, they might need just a distributor in the market. So we do have distributor networks. We've got 3PL networks. We've got, really strong relationships with all the marketplaces. So we can definitely provide that type of advice and feed that back to, the account manager that, James alluded to before about our strong account management point of difference. But it would be working with your account manager in India as opposed to necessarily onboarding and working with an account manager in Australia, because our team here in Australia is focused on the Australian sellers, whereas our strong team in India is very focused on helping the Indian sellers and Indian customers expand globally. And they'll be best placed to help more broadly, so they can help not only with Australia, but also the UK and Southeast Asia and the US and all those markets. They'll be able to do that touch point to everything. So based on the strategy that you're looking to employ, that's your best course of action, really.
Great. I think we have maybe sort of one last question, and I'm going to kind of maybe paraphrase, I think, a few of the questions that have come through. When you're navigating from India, you're a seller, and obviously there's a number of other options and players out in the market. The market's very complex as you're thinking not just to move to a market, but who you should move with. Maybe your thoughts on how to look at someone like Payoneer in terms of what are the key attributes, maybe as considerations versus some of the other options you may be contemplating. James or Miguel, maybe either one of you want to just take that.
Miguel, do you want to go first?
Would love to. So it's a great question, and I'm really proud, as James mentioned, of our capabilities within the region to serve our customers and help them to actually grow their business, right? So we support in multiple languages in Southeast Asia, 24/7. We have a team that's really focused not just on managing relationship, but opening up new business opportunities to markets in other regions where my colleagues, I'm sure, would be very, very open to helping us with, right? So same here, as Nathan mentioned, in terms of Indian sellers wanting to come to Southeast Asia, we can almost provide you like a green channel into market entry, share knowledge, work with local teams in many different countries within the region, and really help gain local insight into the market. And I think that's our value add. Our coverage in the region, I believe, is probably one of the best among similar providers.
Yeah, I'd agree with all those points. And I think, if you look at the payments world, technology has democratized payments and made it easier for everyone to access at a better rate. But one of the things I think Payoneer's done very, very well, which is quite unique, is the element of customer service and really holding our customers' hands. And on a day-to-day basis, that is through the customer success team, and they do a good job of speaking to their colleagues around the world. So as Nathan says, we're in daily contact with the Indian team, for example. But also perhaps a bit more behind the scenes, it's people like our affiliates and partnerships team that make sure that we've got a good network of experts to help with logistics or tax or accounting. So I'd say service is the thing that we really pride ourselves on, and it's back to our kind of going beyond kind of mantra, really.
Can I also add as well? Can I just add really quickly as well? I think it's one additional point is it's just the people, some of the people that we've got in places around the world who are experts in e-commerce and experts in freelancing, who have actually opened stores themselves or have worked for these marketplaces that you want to sell on. I was at eBay. Other people have been at other. Nagesh, you're at PayPal. So we've got these backgrounds where we understand what people are trying to do and understand the businesses that you're trying to work with. So that can give a unique perspective and unique advice that you're not necessarily going to be able to get anywhere else.
That's very, very well said. Let's say that. I think with that, I know we're near the end of our time. But I would like to just maybe summarize a few points, I think, what we covered off today. So I think hopefully you got a perspective of these three very different but significant geographies. There's tremendous growth, both in terms of the consumer engagement across these markets. A lot of this is being spurred as a result of COVID, but I think these are three markets where there was already tremendous momentum in terms of buying behavior, consumers looking for a diverse range of goods and services, not just a limited set. So I think this plays very well in terms of the types of products and services that are being made available potentially from India. And similarly, the enterprise or the marketplaces that exist across all these markets, I think you have different stages of maturity, different levels of growth, but I think there's a lot of common denominators. These markets are looking at, really expanding and growing the number of sellers on their platform, but also, appealing to segments like the Indian diaspora, for example, in Europe. And that Indian diaspora, exists in Australia, exists in New Zealand, it exists in Southeast Asia. So it is a very significant asset, I think, that all of these platforms offer. And then I think finally, I think you've heard some of the learnings, you've heard some of the advice from Miguel, Nathan, and James. Clearly, I think we really, I think from the ability of Payoneer to help navigate, help open up these markets. I think that's something we feel very strongly about, and it's something that we are collectively very passionate about. And I think it's a skill set that all of us sort of have a lot of experience and a lot of practical experience to help the Indian seller community to find and unlock new opportunities around the world. And with that, I will say thank you very much for your time. Thank you for participating with us, and thank you for giving us, the last 30 minutes with you. And again, if there's any questions, I'm sure you'll be able to, pass them through.
Thanks,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.